All right, let's talk a little bit about turns and technique now. When you come in a turn like this, basically, if you're racing or trail riding, which is a good thing, you want to come into it, and in your trail riding, you could have a fun time attacking that turn. You know, come in down low. Riding position is everything for something like this. You're gonna come in a low center. Your body weight's gonna be centered. You're gonna come in low, arms bent, relax. Come in that turn, you're gonna lean over. Trust in your tires. Again, we come back to tires. Tire pressure is everything. Tires will hold in just about every type of terrain if you have the right kind of tire. In Southern California, we have dry, loose conditions. We have rocks, we have a little bit of gravel. Here in Southridge, where we do a lot of racing at, the ground has like a light, pebbly, loose dirt on it. What you got tight ground underneath. So your tires, as they break the loose surface, the rubber actually holds really well on the ground. And again, coming back to tire pressure, I usually run myself anywhere between 20 and 30 pounds, 25, 30 pounds, depending on how we're racing. Wet conditions, you want to probably keep your tire pressure a little tighter because you got traction. So your tires are going to hold really well. And out here, when it rains, when it does, traction is awesome. Anyone will tell you, this course, all the courses out here Donnie does, rock when they're wet. So now we're going to go into that, how you go into those turns. You tack it, you're going to be smooth, you're going to be loose. You know, you're going to come in it, and you go out trail riding, you're not going to just be in an upright position going around a turn, unless you're having a fun time, just relaxing. Sometimes you want to race down those hills, or when you're racing downhill, you're going to race, you want to be in that position. Anytime I'm riding on a trail ride, I'm going to be aggressive with it. I like to have fun with the trail. I like to push myself, see how fast I can hit those turns. We all do. We all like to have a little fun with some speed. So why don't you go on up, we'll do some riding and see what he looks like going through, and I'll tell you some of the techniques and how we're going to do that. You notice how the seat's a little high. On a given day when you're doing trail riding, you're going to have your seat high because you're going up and down hills. There's always chances you're going to stop and you're going to lower your seat for a steeper section. Some guys get very nervous when they're going down steep sections and their seat's really high. A lot of cross-country riders and racers, they'll have their seats high because they don't have time to get off, especially the racers. So when they're going over steep sections, they're way back on the seats on their chest. In a turn, you're coming from a turn, you're up really high. So in that riding position in a turn, it's kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. So when you're sitting there riding, basically you're so up high, you can't get down low on the bike, as you saw as you went through. His technique going through the turn was good. He's in a medium position. He's kind of attacking the turn, which is good. But we're going to see him come through in a more of attack position, like you're really getting down on that turn as you would if you're racing downhill. When you saw him come through on this turn, seat's down low. He's a little bit more aggressive on the bike. He's down low, weight is center mass, so you can get down low on the bike and come in that position and really turn that tire over. When you see pros racing, you're going to see how they come into a turn like this and they attack it. They basically are down low, they're really tilting that bike way over because their tires are grabbing, and they just rail these turns. I've seen top pro riders come around a flat turn where it looks like there's no berm and there's a little bitty bit of dirt about this high, and they make a berm and they go through super fast. So a sweeping turn like this, it's going to be high speed. You're going to want to check your brakes before you come into the turn. So right about that hump up there, you're going to already brake check, and you're not going to put a lot of brakes because you want to carry your speed through the turn. So when you get to this point up here on the turn, basically you're going to come up here, you should be already off your brakes and already bent over and leaning your bike to come into this turn, which is really important. By the time you get to the apex of the turn, you should already start pedaling out of that turn. Pedaling is everything on a downhill course. You could get pedal strokes and save time by getting a stroke here, there, and everywhere. You could get a pedal stroke before you brake check. You should be pedaling down the straightaway. Brake check, come into the turn, and already start pedaling out as you hit that apex and start going over and getting set up for your next turn or straightaway or jump. So always pedaling out of turns, very important, no matter what kind of turn it is. And if you have a turn right after it, you want to get a pedal stroke. Pedal stroke anywhere will help you. It shaves seconds and gives you more speed on your clock. So that's the important thing. Remember, you got to beat the clock. You got to get a fast time. Otherwise, the guy behind you or the guy in front of you is going to beat you. So always, getting pedal strokes out of turn, very important. Right gear positioning too. You want to come into turns in the right gear. You're in too high a gear, you're going to go hit the apex and pedal out of it. It's going to be like a dead pedal. You're going to be sitting there as hard as heck to get out of that. See, a lot of beginners and intermediates make this mistake. They're always in the wrong gear. You're shifting, you're nervous, you're coming in these turns. So you want to be in the right gear position in order to get out of these turns. Coming into the turn, You've got straightaways, you're going up and down these valleys here. So you're gonna be pedaling like crazy when you come out of, let's say, the top of the hills here. So basically, you're gonna be sitting there jamming the pedals, and you're gonna be in the right gear. It's gonna carry you all the way through here. So when you get to this position, your high gear, you should already be shifting to a lower speed gear, or higher speed gear, excuse me. You should be going into higher speed gear, so you're gonna be coming in here, and so you can get out of this pedaling fast. Typically you're gonna be in maybe a 3 or a 4 coming out of this, and then you could get into the pedal and just start jamming out of the turns, whichever turns you're at. Sweeping turns. We'll talk about flat turns, and we'll talk about 90-degree turns in a little bit. Alright, jumping is another technique that you're going to be racing. Of course, in a race mode, jumping isn't always the thing to do. You want to be low and tight on the jump and clean. A lot of guys, you'll see a lot of beginners and intermediates, they sit there and they like to launch off the jumps. You know, it's fun jumping. I like to do it during practice. In racing, it's low and tight. You saw me go through. You saw me doing a jump where I'm really jumping across. You saw me doing a jump where I'm tucked low. That way I get back on the pedals again, losing less time. It depends on the situation, where you're racing and what you're doing, how you're going to approach this jump. You can do a far jump on this. As you see, it's kind of a tabletop. You come into this jump, you could tabletop this by being really low on the bike and coming on the downside. And as you come on the downside, you're saving speed, airtime, you're down low, and you're just speeding down the downside and up and around the turn, or going straight whichever way the course goes. And you're launching, you're spending a lot of airtime up on the top. And like I said, it's fun, but you're way up on top. You gotta wait for that airtime. You're hanging, you're coming down, and then you get on the pedals again as you're getting through the section. So, depending on the situation of where you're jumping and stuff, sometimes it's great to jump because you gotta cover distance. It's a speed. You gotta get down low. Sometimes you're gonna do a jump where you're gonna be down low, and you'll see pros. They could hit this low and be on the downside and just hauling ass all the way to the next turn. Another segment of riding is riding in fast straightaways. This right here is a fast downhill straightaway. But what you got in the straightaway is rain ruts. Rain ruts, logs, small rocks in a straightaway could take you out in a heartbeat if you're not paying attention. Like East Coast, for example, it's always slick and wet. When it's slick and wet, the ruts or a root, especially roots, what they're known for, are slick as mud, and they will take you out. And I know this from experience. In a straight line, you think you're good, and all of a sudden you're on the floor. So if you look at the rain ruts and the way they are and the way they progress, you got light rain ruts and you got heavy rain ruts. Heavy rain ruts don't typically present too much of a problem with an 8-inch travel downhill bike, but with a medium-sized bike, a 5-inch travel bike, or a cross-country bike, you're going to have a lot more bumps, a lot more bumping around. You could lose control, so it gets to be a little tougher, and it gets intimidating sometimes. And if you have rain ruts that go down the trail with you, suddenly you're going to find yourself in a rain rut, and it's a panic situation. You want to hit the brakes. At least the worst thing you could do is hit the brakes, because once you hit the brakes, you start hitting more bumps and you get more out of control. So what you want to do is try to relax. If you can, bunny hop out of a rain rut. Now, if we're talking 3-foot, 4-foot rain ruts, it's kind of hard to bunny hop out of, but some little rain ruts could take you out. So you want to be relaxed. You want to be able to pop out of that rain rut really fast and carry your speed through it. Now we're going to see some examples of the progression of bikes going through rain ruts in a fast section, like a downhill bike all the way to a cross-country bike. And you're going to see the different size travel bikes. So I'm going to have the guys come on down. You see how the suspension control for each of the rain ruts as it hits. And you can actually hear the bike suspensions hitting a little bit harder. The downhill bike, a little softer, you don't hear as much hitting and with the suspension knocking at each other when it's sitting there just hammering through. You saw the 5-inch travel bike come through, you hear a little bit more noise. The cross-country bike with less travel, hitting the rain ruts more. Some of our trails in Southern California, when you go and ride like in Aliso Woods, you got a trail called Rocket. That trail has a lot of rock sections, but the rain ruts with rock sections in there. You go through that fast on a 3-inch travel bike, and it rocks you around good. So that's what you want to be relaxed in, and then finding, again, we'll talk about later, finding the right line to go through.